You've lived a great life and done well for yourself. But what mark will you leave on the world? How will you inspire future generations? Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand have helped thousands of people answer exactly those questions. If you've ever wondered, what will be my legacy? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Stan and Katie Beth.
Welcome back to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with your host, Katie Beth Hand. My guest today is an architect for the intergenerational economy and society and the founder of Portadome, Marisa Toldo. Marisa, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
So I want to talk a lot about Portadome, but before we dive in with that, you're an architect, you've done a lot of cool things. Tell our listeners a little bit about your background, which is really unique, your background and kind of this journey you went on and the story that inspired you, that really inspired the vision for you to create Portadome.
Well, thank you for asking because it's really funny. I took my architectural degree back in Venezuela. My university is World Heritage in the UNESCO. And I started to work there with my professor, and we will refurbishing hospitals for the International Monetary Fund and this stuff. And then I moved to Spain, and from the pampering office environment, I jumped into the job site, and has been really a good learning experience. And I work with big clients, so has been really interesting. And then I worked for American companies up in the market, and I moved to Berlin in 2010, I guess. And I work in small projects here, but it was with my life experience that I really shift the way I think and I see the world. My dad started to live with dementia, and this reality shaped the way I think, the way I see space, and the way I see realities. And has been really challenging because when you are a caregiver, you know how hard it is, because you love your loved ones, no? And then you try to fulfill all the roles, daughter, caregiver, architect, and sometimes not all fit together. And my brother and I, we live here in Germany, and my parents were back in Italy because they originally were Italians. My mom, unfortunately, she passed away. And a few years later, we found ourselves changing 8 caregivers in 1 year. And has been really challenging because it's really affecting the well-being of my dad and all of us. And then we decided to put him in a facility care. And when we visited the first one, I was so shocked that I told my brother, this is worse than a jail, because in a jail, you have the right to go to the patio and you don't pay. But here, I told him, I don't feel comfortable leaving my dad there. And also the people working there, how you can provide care when basically no one cares about you. So for me, it was like a reality check, really deeply. And I came back to Berlin so shocked. And of the first 3-4 that we saw, that I decided to call all my Venezuelan friends all over the world and ask them, how do you have, or what do you have in the country you live that you will like for you? Not that it's okay for someone, that you would like to be you there, because then you change the perception. And I found amazing examples in different places. Japan is doing great things. I found an American doctor called Alan Power, which is super inspiring, and many other projects also in Holland. But everything has something nice, but it was nothing that I really like all together. No, I say like, this is nice, but what, they are not together. And was one day when we were visiting my dad in the facility care, that I was sitting next to him, he was in his own world, and suddenly a child passed by and jumped into a swing. And they crossed the eyes, and something sparked there. And this aha moment, then I say like, intergenerational practice, let's deep in. And what I found was a world amazing. So the huge benefit that we have these intergenerational interactions is huge. I thought it was normal because I grew up in that way. And when I started to realize and check and learn, I realized that unfortunately, it's not the reality for everyone, and we are really, really, really lacking this kind of connections. So I went into the topic that I became a tutor in Generation Working Together, just to let you
No.
know.
No, I love that. And I think it's so true. So, used to, at least here in the United States where I am, families all lived close together. People lived, especially here in the southern United States, it was like farming community. So multiple generations lived together, worked together. The adults cared for the elder adults and the young kids at the same time. That was kind of how this country was built, and you don't see that anymore. Very much now you see much more of the experience that you described when you first started looking for a home, a place to put your dad, is you walk in and it's shocking. It's not a place that you want. You don't want that for them, and you certainly wouldn't want that for you for the rest of your life. So tell me, obviously an inspiring story, and one a lot of our listeners can relate to that experience. What did that inspire you to do? Well, how does Portadome work? What is it like?
Well, Portadome started because I was wondering if this happened just to myself, because no one was talking about. And when I was talking with friends, I said, like, well, I have this situation with my dad, it's really hard. And then suddenly say someone, well, me too, and me too, and me too. And I was like, okay, who are the caregivers? So we talk about intergenerational practice a lot in the field, but you have normally the relationship with the child and the elder. And I was thinking, and what happened with you? Because you are the one who run for everyone. Why anyone is putting you in the equation, Because you decide, okay, well, let's put the child here, let's support my parents that way. But what about you? And then what I found, because I stopped working in the way I used to work, I couldn't handle big projects like I did it before in Spain or in Venezuela. And what I found is like many people are dropping the workforce in order to care. And I thought, okay, many companies have a childcare. It's normal. And it's not out of love, it's because of the return of investment is clear.
Right.
But why we are not talking about elder care? For me, it was like, well, we have a longevity society, we have a birth gap situation. Why we are not supporting our workforce? Because what we found is basically women around 50 start to drop the workforce in order to care. And for me, it was like, well, A plus B equals C. So 1 plus 2 equals 3. So we have a company who have a childcare. Why we don't support or also invest or at least see the problematic or the challenge caregivers has for their parents? And for me, it was like, well, let's make something possible, but also let's calculate the return of investment to see that if you support your people, it's going to be a plus at the end of the return of investment.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And so it's interesting too. So here in the States, we even have less than you guys do of that supportive childcare piece built into our workforce. So that's part of the struggle as well. Like, I'm married, I'm a working mom of 4, working from home today because there's always a sick kid here or a sick kid there. When you've got 4, there's a lot. And then I'm also in that phase of life like you're talking about where I've also got aging parents. So I'm caregiving for the older generation and then also still caregiving for my own children. And that does, not even time wise as much, but the mental capacity thinking about, okay, this weekend is a care home visit, or, we've got this doctor's appointment. So much of that pulls away from my ability to do my job well sometimes, or you have to make the choice of, am I going to be the best daughter today or the best employee today? So what I love about the vision behind what you're talking about is really creating a way to support people in those caregiver roles where they can have it all, be able to be the working parent, be able to be the caregiver for those older generations. And then that still helps the company as well. I'm the best employee when I'm not stressed about taking care of other people. So what does Portadome look like? Like, talk about what that looks like kind of in a real life setting.
Well, I like to talk about co-location.
Mm-hmm.
Think about a company who already have a childcare on site or nearby, and we add on co-located elder care facility, daycare, and what I call the magic is the intergenerational club. as a third other space, because intergenerational practice is not for everyone, I know that, but when you see the magic happens and how these interactions benefit childs also and elders, because people think it's just for elders, I like, no, it's for childs too, and also teenagers, because we really need that. And it's like a collocated. For example, let's talk about a company who already have a big campus close. Think about a small, medium city who have a company with a childcare. We add on a daycare facility and also intergenerational club. And the main point is that you are able to go to work with the peace of mind that your loved ones are well cared. And also the intergenerational club is key because I like to talk about autonomy, space where everyone have the same rights, benefits, and welcoming. Because sometimes with elder care facility and childcare, you have a lot of regulations that who's coming, where, when, and why. But if we have a third co-located space where with the volunteers and workers that we can run and do activities, guided activities around 1 hour that benefit both of groups. And then everyone goes back to their own main spaces.
No, I love that. I love the intergenerational club. And honestly, so what I love about that vision is that it really, and you hit on this, it really does help both groups. Like, on the one hand, obviously, it's great for older people to get to interact with, play with, see kids run by. Because in your typical care facility type setting, you don't have a lot of that unless their own grandkids visit, they don't get to see kids anymore. And that's so heartbreaking. But at the same time, it's also, I think, such a huge benefit to those young kids
Yeah.
because these are people that have lived long lives. They have different world experience. They've experienced a different piece of history than these younger kids will ever get to experience. They have wisdom, they have stories of success, they have stories of failure. And so being able to have almost like a mentor relationship where the kids encourage these older adults and the older adults enjoy that, but also for these older adults to really have purpose and get to feed into this younger generation. I think that is such an incredibly powerful idea. It's one that we used to have as a society, and because of the way the workforce grew, we've lost that. So I love the vision behind this and that it's really striving to bring that back.
Hi, thank you so much. For me, it's like makes just sense. And we see nowadays, yeah, kids are here, elders there, workflow is there. It's like, why when we can have like a more cohesive and more supportive reality for all of us? Because at the end, it's when you see the interactions happening or this intergenerational interaction happening, it's just magic. It's beautiful. It's really, I was in London last week and I was visiting one of the first intergenerational spaces, and I spent the whole day, smiling. I was like, wow, it's so energizing. It's so beautiful. And also, you have many activities. You can have teenagers teaching the grandpas, so the grandfriends, to use some tech things. And they are, as you say, they have so much wisdom. So I used to handle that. My auntie, she's 88, and sometimes I'm really like a super stressed. And I'm going to Italy talking to her. And she said, like, okay, again, what was the problem? And I'm like, nothing.
Yeah, right. Right. No, having those that elders able to pour in, it gives them a sense of purpose. No one wants to grow old and feel useless, and these are people that are no longer part of the workforce. And so instead of just being cared for, they're still getting that opportunity to contribute. And I would imagine if you did some sort of study on this, the mental health benefits for all of these different ages is probably through the roof because of the different pieces. I love what you said about the teenagers. I have, God help me, 3 teenagers in my house. And so, but it is really great we are very blessed in that my parents and my husband's parents live close to us. But getting to watch them interact and watch my 7-year-old teach my mom how to use her iPad or fix the remote to the TV, and getting to watch my mom teach my 12-year-old daughter how to bake something from scratch. Or, you know, there's so many things in there that, especially for these younger generations coming up, you can't learn all that stuff from an iPad. And so I love the idea that it's really helping all of these groups, including teenagers across the board.
Yeah, because it's also the way we communicate nowadays, you know? And for me, it's like it's super key because it's coming back, bringing back humanity together. Because what we found is sometimes people are connecting through apps, which I'm totally happy with that, but how we really are able to talk with each other in a way that we are not scared or we don't feel anxious. So it's a way to learn. And also, you have some examples. You have in United States, they're great examples. Go Generate is amazing what they do. But for example, also in Scotland, you have amazing people doing some stuff. And you have some retired people who have been part of corporates or the workforce that are now retired, and they support teenagers to go through what I want to be when I'm older or when I grow, or how can I fill up the form for my university? Well, depending on the country now, because it's really different, but you have so much support, and which is, for me, it's like, okay, it's a winner.
It is. It's a winner there's no downside to this. It's very, very cool. Well, what else is it that I haven't asked you that our listeners should know about when it comes to this idea and then Portadome specifically?
Well, the idea is really funny because I really struggle to get data. So I'm an architect, but I love researchers, really. And I love pollinate. I'm really like how a friend of mine called me a social butterfly.
Yes.
And because I'm talking with sociologists, anthropologists, gerontologists, managers, and many other people. So what I would love to ask people is be curious, be open to talk with the different fields, because in the way we are open to check with each other, it's going to be great. I really struggle to get the data to know how much money companies are losing because they don't pay attention to it.
Right. That's not a question. Childcare might be something on a company survey. Elder care is probably never included in any company surveys. So I don't know how you would try to go about getting any type of quantifiable data for that.
It's impossible because what happened is we don't talk about it and we lie about it. So I will ask human resource, chief officers, many people that start to be kind and ask, but not with the knife in the hand. Because what I found is people lie because they are really afraid to lose their work. And instead of saying, well, I need to bring my mother or my father-in-law to the hospital, they say, well, I'm sick.
Right.
And if we don't quantify the reality, it's really hard to get. So you have a Harvard study, the caring company, who have some numbers saying that 73% of your workforce are caregivers. 73% is like a quite interesting number to get in, no? And I just found one study in Holland who calculate the billions companies are losing. But when you, for example, you start to talk with companies, okay, you have amazing childcare, let's talk about elder care. And then you see people panicking and say like, well, let's bring the conversation to the table with compassion, with kindness, because we really need to see if we don't name the problem, we will never solve it. And for me, part of the key of Portadome is to bring the conversation to the table, because every time I say like, hello, everyone, let's talk about that. And people are like, really? They say, yeah, really.
Everyone's afraid they're going to get in trouble, right? That their company is going to look bad because they're not doing enough. But you really, Marisa, hit on the key, which is this is happening. We know that across the board that it's happening. You and I both know from personal experience that this is an issue. But because of the way society is, and this is probably in every country, you are more likely to, like, we've created a society and a work ethic where you feel like you have to lie about doing your elder care. You might be more likely to say, my child is sick, I'm staying home. But for some reason, that line of doing elder care, you're afraid isn't as justified. And that's not true. It's the same idea, whether the person you're caregiving for is 5 years old or 85 years old. Yeah. The job is the same. So I love that you are bringing up the conversation and kind of planting these seeds this isn't an issue that's going away anytime soon, right?
No,
And I
no.
appreciate you
It's
working
a
on it
legacy.
because I'm about to turn 40. So like I've still got a while, hopefully, but like this is something that will impact everyone. Like at some point, this is a conversation about what those years of life are going to look like. And I hope that you are able to make an impact and that our listeners will really take all of this to heart. And that maybe by the time that we get to where we are people in the elder generation, maybe life will look a little bit brighter for us.
Yeah, well, I'm totally convinced because it's a systemic problem, as you say. It's not a problem that's affecting you or me, just or some of the listener. It's a systemic problem and it's a global problem. Or let's talk about challenge. It's a global challenge. We have a Japan, which is the oldest country in the world, followed by Italy, which is the oldest in Europe, and so on. But with the demographic that we are seeing and the birth gap that we are seeing, we are having less kids and we're having a longevity society. So it's not like, okay, this is got anyway. No, we need to really face it. But for me, like how we can really create a solution that works for everyone, for companies, for a city, for developers, for operation people, and for caregivers itself, because we are all part of this.
Right, absolutely. No, I love the mission. Okay, one final question, and then I know you have other things to do with your evening. So thank you for letting me pick your brain. So this may be the hardest question. So through your work as an architect, and then certainly through your work with Portadome and the impact you're trying to make with that, what do you hope your legacy will be?
I hope to see at least 500 Portadomes in each country, you know? That will be a beautiful legacy. Contagious the people in such a way that I'm able to be a multiplicator and to explore that, adapt in each country, in each culture, in each reality, but create, because I do really believe in the impact. And my legacy will be to see at least 500 Portadome for each country.
I love it. That's a beautiful dream. And hopefully, this is one of the steps on getting you to that mission. So, thank you so much for the work that you're doing with this. This is incredible.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, we want to thank you guys for tuning in as well. This has been the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with your host, Katie Beth Hand. And my guest today was Marisa Toldo. And to connect with Marisa, learn more about her mission, maybe get a Portadome started in your area, you can visit marisatoldo.com or portadome.com, and we will link those for you guys in the show notes to make it easy to find. Marisa, thank you again so much for joining me, and thank you for all the work that you're doing to really make a positive impact on the world as a whole.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To find out more about Stan and Katie Beth, go to pinnaclelegacylaw.com. You can also find links in the show notes.